It has been 11 months now since I got my hands on an A4-1B from Antelope Audio. It is an amazing vocal compressor, and that's mainly what I use it for. Of course, you can use it on a bunch of different sources, and I'll show some of that here in the video. But I just love this compressor, and I want to talk about what I like about it after 10 months and some of the features that it has. There are some features that aren't really relevant to my workflow, but even if they're not super important to me, they are worth highlighting because they are going to be useful for a lot of other people. The A4-1B has been my go-to vocal compressor for 11 months now, so much so that I got rid of other gear because I found myself not using it as much as I use the A4-1B. I love this piece of gear and I love Antelope. I love what they do. And yeah, I can't hype this compressor up enough. I think, especially with the recent price decrease, putting it at below $2,000, I think this is a very competitive option for that really signature tube opto compressor sound. All right, so let's talk about the A4-1B. I've had a chance to use basically all of the stapled tube opto compressors that are on the market. I used to be at a studio, and there was even a time where I had the A4-1B, one of the other clones, as well as the original CL-1B unit, which is the one, it's just the sound that everyone gets after, right? And this is the reason why something like this exists. So with that said, let's talk about some of the features. If you're familiar with the CL-1B, you're obviously gonna see that this is very familiar, but just for the people who have never really seen it or used one before, these are incredibly easy compressors to use, and matter of fact, they're known at being very transparent even when you drive them really hard. And I will show an example of that shortly here, but let's just go over what's on the faceplate of the unit here. So firstly, you have your gain, which is going to be your output gain after you hit the compression, right? You have your ratio, and this is kind of set up to where I would start. That's pushing pretty hard, but set up where I would start with something like vocals. This is about a 5-to-1 ratio. You have 2-to-1 here and 10-to-1 here, so you think halfway in between. That's kind of where you're at, right? Threshold, how much compression. So then moving down to the timing knob here, custom is going to be full manual, right? If you want to have full control over your attack and release, that's what you're going to go. Hybrid is going to be your fixed attack and source dependent release. This is very cool just to dial in a really quick sound. And of course, fixed is going to have your fixed attack and release settings. I like custom. I was using it on hybrid for some other reason, but typically I'll go for custom just so I have full control over the sound that I'm getting. And then of course you have your attack and release knobs here. I did go over the ratio. You do have a side chain link if you did want to put units together. That's really nice. I only have one right now. I would love to have a stereo pair of these to test, but for right now we're working with one unit. And then you have your VU meter adjustment here. So you can monitor your input in, gain reduction, which is probably what most people use, right? And then you could use even the input and output sections. When I flip it on output, it's going to show my output. So if you're really trying to get scientific and make sure that the input and output levels are relatively the same so you're not tricking your ears, you can use that method. I just use my ears and whatever sounds good, so it basically stays on gain reduction, right? So you do have a bypass knob here, which is really nice. The backlight on the meter turns off when you are bypassed, so you know at a quick glance that you are not compressing. I use this all the time to level check and make sure that I'm liking the changes that I'm making. Over here, you're gonna see a little automation light. And one thing that is insanely cool and really is a feature that I don't think exists in any other compressor in this lane, I could be wrong, is the fact that it has plugin support. And at first, the A4-1B got a lot of flack because the plugin support was locked behind a paywall of some sort, where you got it free for like a year and then had to pay for like the Antelope subscription afterwards. They quickly corrected that, which I think is great. They did the right thing. I'm just really impressed. This is not a feature that I use a lot. This is my vocal tracking compressor as of right now. Sure, I could use it in mixes, things like that, But because I'm tracking with it, I physically dial in the knobs rather than using the plugin. But the power of using the plugin is going to be really valuable to somebody who has like a hybrid mixing setup where they like to use hardware for their mixes. Because one of two things, you can put the plugin right on the track that you're trying to affect, and you can then route it out. And then every change you make in the plugin is going to happen in real time on the unit. If you turn a knob in the plugin, these are motorized faders and they will turn as well. I think that that's cool. It's just one of those things that it's got a little bit of a shock value to it that I think is cool. But the practical use for it is you can save presets. So what that means is recalls are much easier, right? Me, as far as vocals go, I'm making minor adjustments when I'm recording something in, maybe the threshold, maybe the ratio and attack and release, but I typically stay around these settings at all times, of course, depending on the source that I'm recording. Because I'm not using this for mixing, I really am just not using the plugin, if I'm being honest. But nonetheless, it is worth mentioning because even if it's not valuable to me, it's going to be valuable to a lot of other people. And now one thing that I find really cool about this compressor is if you have pesky kids or clients who can't keep their hands off of your gear while your gear is off, and then you go to turn it back on, it will actually return to where it was, which I think is amazing because if it's off and someone fiddles with stuff and you need to revisit the same settings that you recorded in your last session, all you got to do is cycle it back on, and look at that. It returns to exactly where it was, which I think that is amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people just reach for knobs because the gear is off. They assume that it's okay to touch, things like that, right? And also, these knobs are very satisfying to use, so it is tempting. All right, and now let's dive into the sound samples. I recorded both acoustic guitar and vocals through the Discrete 8 Oryx from Antelope Audio. It's an amazing sounding interface and preamp. But I'll go ahead and just play everything raw as is, and then we'll start adding the A4-1B to the sources.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding light or tunnels to gates of white, just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
All right, so let's go ahead and affect the vocal first. And of course, the context is going to matter, but just to show you what it does to the vocal, we'll solo it out.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding light or tunnels to gates of white, just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
And that's basically like the basis I usually start with as far as vocal compression goes. Of course, I could adjust the attack and release, but about 5 dB of gain reduction is good. But just to show you how capable this compressor is, let's crank it because this compressor is really hard to mess up. It just sounds really transparent and really good, even if it's pushed to the max.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding light or tunnels to gates of white, just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
The A4-1B adds and accommodates the sizzly top end that is already existent in the mic that I use to record the vocals, but I just think that this mixed with my Twin 48 that I use to record the vocals make for a really, really good balanced sound. There's no EQ on there. There's absolutely nothing. That was straight into the preamp from the Oryx 8. All right, and now for acoustic guitar, I'm probably going to go for a lighter ratio, and we'll see how this sounds.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding
Faster attack.
light or tunnels to gates of white, just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark. Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind.
It's really lifting that
I'll
signal.
follow you into the dark.
Level
No
match.
blinding light or tunnels to gates of white. Just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
So this was before?
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding light or tunnels to gates of white. Just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
And then this is after.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding light or tunnels to gates of white. Just our hands clasped so tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
I want to thank you guys for watching the video, and thank you for Antelope for letting me try out some amazing gear. I love you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.